our pocket-sized Gran Turismo.
Hello everyone, welcome to Classic Car Diaries. Today we have this beautiful Fiat 850 Coupe, beautiful and rare. With us today we have the lovely owner, Nimal. So Nimal, just to get started, why don't you tell us about how you found this car? Because I think that's a really interesting story.
So I found this car in a village of Deniaya. A friend of mine told me about this. I was always interested in Fiats, old Fiats. He told me about this. It was apparently owned by this Grama Sevaka in that area. We said, okay, let's go and have a look at it. And the owner had said, bring a battery because it can be started. But my friend didn't believe it because the condition, he had seen it. He said it might not start. But anyway, for what it was worth, we took a battery and we set off after work at 5 o'clock from Colombo and went to Deniaya. Got there at 9 o'clock. And there was this car sitting next to a well outside, just outside, not covered or anything. And it looked like when people bathed at the well, this driver's side of the car would get wet. And this was all rusty. We just opened the door to have a look inside and the door fell down. But for what it's worth, because this guy kept on saying it'll start, we put the battery and first shot it started.
No way.
So then we did the deal. We put some petrol in and drove it back that night with only one light working to Gaul, where I had a friend. And we kept the car at my friend's house for that night. It would have been 11 o'clock by that time. And we came back to Colombo.
I think it's good that people didn't think you were a motorcycle, no? Yeah.
I went on another day to Gaul, where the car was with my friend at my friend's house. Basically, first thing I did was I drove it to a tinker and got the door welded in place because it was tied with rope and stuff like that. Yeah. And then, believe it or not, I drove it to Colombo.
From there. And what year was this?
Would have been 2000, 1999 or 2000.
So pre-Southern Highway, you drove this 850 from Gaul with a welded door, with no mechanical repairs whatsoever, half rusted from an Arnold in there.
That's right.
And you drove it all the way back.
Yes.
That's amazing. Once you brought it back, what was your initial restoration and how did you get this car up to where it is now?
When I first got it, it had got all these village modifications, I suppose. They had, for example, raced the car, and the two rear wheels were like this, and the front was raised. The whole car was like a four-wheel drive.
Yeah.
It looked like a four-wheel drive.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And then they had changed the front completely. Maybe they lost the bumper bar or something like that. There was no bumper bar. They had made a lip at the bottom, and they had put two extra headlights made it four headlights.
Bit of a rally spec.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My first thing was I needed to get it down and do the tinkering, of course. That's what I did first. I took it to a tinker and got him to do everything back to original, because the rear, actually they had welded a plate halfway down so that the car would sit up. So we removed all that and brought it back to original. The front, they had recambered it's got a transverse spring in front.
Okay.
They had recambered the spring so that it stood up high. Again, we recambered it down.
So that's how they had achieved the lift. They'd actually used the camber and they'd change the spring, is it?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Not quite how they do it on four-wheel drives.
No.
Yeah. You've owned this car now for how many years?
25 years, I think.
25 years, wow. Okay, would you say like the peak of your ownership with this car would have been this year at Mahagasthota?
Of course, because even though I owned it for 25 years, I hardly ever ran it properly, because what used to happen was I used to give it to workshops to sort out the mechanicals, and then it'll come back and things would crop up, and then I'd keep it aside, forget about it for a year. It went on like that. 2024 Mahagasthota, I wanted to run it, and I gave it to this particular workshop, and they did a lot of work. and they just couldn't finish it before the entry date for Mahagasthota. And finally, I got it like 6 months later, early 2025, I think. Even then, it was not right because I couldn't do a long trip because I would do 5 kilometers and it would stop. Okay. And then I'd change the plugs, clean the plugs, and then it'll start again.
And I think this was around the time you got into the carburetor, is that correct?
Yeah, so what I did was I searched on the internet and I found that these Weber carbs, you need to pull them apart completely and soak them in thinner for a few days and then blow the passages out with carburetor cleaner and put it back and it should sort it out. So that's what I did. I did that at home and the car was perfect after that.
Wow.
So then I ran it to Mahagasthota. That was a real achievement.
And you drove it all the way up to
all the
Norelli,
way,
right?
All the way to Norelli.
Up those hills, and it didn't overheat once?
Nothing.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what did it feel like after 25 years to finally have this car running at its full potential? Because, you did not truly enjoy the driving experience, I'd imagine.
I have owned several Fiat 600s previously, but this is the first time I owned an 850. And I knew that to drive a 600 or even a 500 is beautiful. It's a nice feeling to drive those cars. Even though they are low on power, they are really nice cars to drive. And it's the same with this one.
Yeah.
One more thing I forgot to tell
Please.
you, one of the village modifications they had done, they had welded a stopper at the bottom of the accelerator pedal, right? I was wondering why this car was not revving, right?
Yeah.
So then I realized what they had done, because it got a twin choke carburetor, when you press the accelerator beyond a certain point, the second choke opens.
Ah, okay.
So they stopped it from opening. So it did better fuel economy.
Oh my goodness. Okay. That's...
So when you took the stopper
it
off,
was almost like a boost.
Yeah. When you took the stopper off, the car used to fly.
So I think the other fascinating element of this car predates your ownership of it. Can you tell us about this car's racing history?
Yeah, to start with, this car was originally owned by the gentleman called Rahul Senivaratna. Unfortunately, he passed away recently. And in his younger days, in my younger days as well, I remember this car. He was a friend of mine. I have been with him in this car.
Okay.
And I think he raced it a couple of times in Mahagasthota or Radel or someplace. And there is a photo that he has given me with him and some trophies on the bonnet. Then the most significant part was the next owner was Bri Ponnambalam.
Right.
And Bri owned it for a few years, and Bri tells me that the first car that he ever raced was this car.
Wow.
And that was at Mahagasthota. So this time that was one of the things I was telling Bri, after your time, the car is going to Mahagasthota for the first time, So that was a significant moment for this car.
And I mean, Bri went on to become a Mahagasthota record holder.
That's right.
So, I mean, the fact that his journey at Mahagasthota at that particular track started with this is really something.
Yeah.
So do we know who the first owner of this car was? How this car came to the country?
Initially, it was brought into the country by one Mr. Ilanga Singh, who was also a friend of Rahul and Bri. They all knew him. He bought it in England and shipped it privately. There was another racing driver called Amin Dean. He used to race minis until recently. He had it in his family. His mother owned it actually.
Wow.
His mother was the last registered owner when I bought it.
You bought it.
Of course, from her it had gone to several other people, but not transferred.
It's amazing that this car has come in and out of the Sri Lankan classic car community, several times.